Tyrants on the rise. Will you fall to your knees? Will you stand and fight? Come and take it. Bring it on. In defiance of your tyranny, Sparta will stand strong.
Greetings, my fellow free love sovereign thinkers. This LL3's Views Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy Mangas of South Florida. And today's date is Wednesday, July 4th, 2018. Happy Independence Day to all my brothers and sisters around the United States of America and to all the freedom lovers out there around the world. I intentionally decided to do a song like this. Originally, I was trying to do one the Declaration Day from Ice Earth. But, things do occur, so I'll use Molon Labe from Sons of Liberty. That was John Schaefer's project. You can go to bandcamp.com and check it out on his EP. I know they have there's another album he did too, which is from, you can probably go on iTunes and check it out as well. It's good stuff. I got to know one thing for sure, Mr. Schaefer does use a lot of historical merit to the songs as well, so even though the project hasn't been active for all these times, however, I still enjoy the song every time I play it. So, of course, you're going to have people out there complaining about it's the white man's holiday and all that good stuff. Let's tell you something, one thing for sure about the Declaration of Independence. When Jefferson wrote it, announced that we all have certain natural rights, which is 100% unalienable. No such thing as privileges. Doesn't matter what you look like, where you come from. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of issues that happen in this part of the world. Just an example how treacherous it really is. And that's one of the reasons why when I talk about Independence Day is for every individual to exercise what they stand for. A lot of folks out there believe there's nothing you can do. That's completely irrelevant. Total BS. And say, I'm a slave, a peasant, and Uncle Tom and Aunt Jemima to the system. I don't believe in that. I don't even endorse this rhetoric of white privilege. Imagine me calling the government, hey, government, I'm a white guy. Can you please, can I take my dog out for a walk? Yeah, government, I'm a white guy. Can you please, can I have permission to make love to my wife at such and such time? Think about it. It's not totally retarded. This is why when I hear all these things about white nationalism, black nationalism, and all that, I just wipe my butt on it and flush it down the toilet. Because to me, it's null and void. And it's all mind control. And the people that still support that are diagnosed with the Jim Jones syndrome. Victims of Edward Bernays' playbook propaganda. We hear people talking about go up-rousing, rebel-rousing and all that, looking for a second civil war. I want those clowns going to the front line to see how tough they are. If not, just give them a bar of Palmolive soap. I'm not afraid to call out these idiots out there. But more than pretentious chicken hawks. Think they're above everybody. I never bought it one damn bit. I always believe in killing the television because they want to brainwash us. Flatline. Scientific fact. When I intend to watch something on Netflix or a documentary or have a DVD, I purposely leave the subtitles on. People go, how can we do that? I go, I want my brain waves to flutter instead of flatline. Look it up. Scientific fact. So hopefully everyone's out there are being safe. Doesn't matter where you're at. A lot of things are happening. People are protesting. They want open borders. Even people run for Congress support the open borders. You know what? They're nothing more than Club of Rome douchebags. Bend over Bobs to the New World Order. They're up there with George W. Bush, Al Gore, Barack Obama, and Rick Perry, allegedly speaking. That's how I see it. Prove me wrong if you dare. When you call me a racist? When bent over Bob's and trees Christ become a race, then we'll talk. Yes, I am an equal opportunity insulter for those that earn it. But thereafter, we can all talk to one another as honorable human beings, have great discussions, learn about the pros and cons in life, even in history. We all have the dark sides. We all live in our countries always had dark. Every country in the world has dark sides of history. But don't put this guilt trip on people. Very juvenile. Teach enlightened. Don't be stagnant. I see some of these movements out there, these little pathetic parties I'm highly critical of. Wants everything handed to them. Believe the United Nations, they still buy the stores. The United Nations believe that every human being has a right to a job. A right? Oh yeah, give them a job. Just hand it to them. Hand them respect. It's got to be earned, not given. That's what human nature is all about. Help those that help themselves? Absolutely. There's a lot of disturbed folks out there too. Not here to condemn, but enlighten. Yeah, it's pretty warm out here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Looks like it'll be raining anytime soon. I see some clouds on the west side. And I'm along Los Olas Boulevard, the financial center, right by the Bank of America building. Very glammy indeed. So, if I ever left the beach, I ever listened to a classic rock band, cover bands, jukebox bands, whatever you want to call it, I'll be out there later on today. I'm trying to have 23 flags all together. Have the American flag on top, the triple threat flag in the bottom, which is a combination of the United States Confederate flag in half, and the Gadsden. Just says, "Don't tread on me." Call me a racist. You're gonna have a big problem on that, my friends. As well, even the strangers as well. But yeah, so just kicking back, having a good time. Oops, sorry about that. Do a little pristine, do a little love, everything with homage. So, do a little. I'm not gonna go too crazy. I know I'm digressing. I admit that. However, I'm gonna be narrating a couple things about the history of the original Declaration of Independence, which these fellow Marxist clowns don't want you to know. Because, oh, Jefferson owned slaves, he was a racist. However, read before, verify everything before, listen to bobbleheads. Doesn't matter what side of the paradigm you're on. As read here, there's a commentary written by Karen Lees. Came out yesterday. Jefferson's original draft of the Declaration of Independence condemned slavery. Introduction. It is important to note that Thomas Jefferson's paragraph condemning Great Britain's imposition of the slave trade on the colonies in the original draft of the Declaration of Independence was deleted by South Carolina and Georgia delegates to the Continental Congress prior to signing. Contrary to popular belief, Jefferson inherited his slaves and was prohibited from freeing them because of Jefferson state law in place at the time. There was a small window of opportunity in Virginia for George Washington to free his inherited slaves upon his death in 1799. But the state legislature quickly closed the loophole and soon after. That's right. State know best. In 1807, President Jefferson signed federal law ending the importation of slaves to the U.S. based on a provision in Article 1, Section 9 of the U.S. Constitution. Ships could no longer bring slaves to the American shores. By 1865, the U.S. would be the only second nation in the world to abolish slavery, just 32 years after the first, Great Britain in 1833. To research the subject, sources for original foundings, era documents, diaries, letters, and other original writings can be found at wallbuilders.com. Thomas Jefferson's original draft follows. Note that italicized words or phrases were omitted in the final draft. Bracketed words or phrases were added to the original draft and appeared in the final draft. Introduction by Karen Lees, Language of Liberty editor. A declaration by the representatives of the United States of America in Congress, in General Congress assembled. When the course of human events, it becomes necessary for the people to dissolve the political bands which have committed them with another, and to assume among powers of the earth a separated and equal station to which the laws of nature and of natures of gods entitle them. The decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them into separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with inherent and certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among them, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whatever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. The southern states did that by altering a new government, and they call that treason. And the same thing what Britain did to the United States. King George III made that statement. It's called treasonous. 56 men who signed the Declaration of Independence, the final draft to be exact. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms of which they are accustomed. But when a long trend of abuses and usurpations begun at the stringent period and pursuing invariably at the same subject evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance in these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to expunge, alter their former system of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of unremitting, repeated injuries and usurpations, among which appears no solitary fact to contradict the uniform tenor of the rest, but all have, or having, in direct object the establishment of absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world for the truth of which we pledge a faith, yet unsullied by falsehood. He has refused to assent the laws of the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. And when so suspended, he has early neglected to attend them. He refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people would relinquish the right of representation of the legislator, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the dispository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly and continually for opposing with manly firmness his invasion of the rights of the people. He has refused for a long time, after such dissolutions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers incapable of annihilation have returned to the people at the large for their exile, state remaining in the meantime exposed to all dangers of invasion without or convulsion within. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states for that purpose, obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migration hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. He has suffered obstruct the administration of justice, totally deceived in some of these states by refusing this assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made our judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount of payment of their salaries. He has erected multitude new offices by self-assumed power, and sent hither swarms of new officers to harass our people and eat out their substances. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies and ships of wars without the consent of our legislature. You see where this is going. It's very interesting indeed. And that will continue on here. He has inflicted to render the military dependent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his accent to their facts or pretended legislation. For courting large bodies of armed troops among us, for protecting them by a mock trial for punishment for any murders which they committed on the inhabitants of the state, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, proposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefit of a trial by jury, for transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses, for abolishing the free system of English laws in the neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government and enlarging its boundaries so as to render at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these states or colonies, for taking away our charter, abolishing our most valuable laws and altering fundamentally forms of our government, for suspending our own legislators and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate us in all cases whatsoever. He has abdicated government, here withdrawing his governors and declared us out of his allegiance and protection. By declaring us out of his protection and raging war against us, he has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. He has the time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun, with circumstances and cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled by the most barbarous ages and totally unworthy of the heads of a civilized nation. He has constrained our fellow citizens to take captive on the high seas, to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. He has excited domestic insurrection among us, and has endeavored to bring on inhabitants of our frontiers and the merciless Indian savages who know rule of warfare and is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions of existence. He has incited treasonable insurrections of our fellow citizens with the allurement of forfeiture and confiscation of our property. He has waged cruel war against human nature itself, violating its most sacred rights of life and liberty in the persons of a distant people who never offended him, captivating and carrying them into slavery, into another hemisphere, or to incur miserable death in their transportation thither. This practical warfare, the opprobrium of infidel powers, is the warfare of the Christian king of Britain, determined to keep an open market where men should be bought and sold. He has prostituted his negative for suppressing every legislative attempt to prohibit or to restrain his execrable commerce, and has an assemblage of whores might want no fact of distinguished dye. He is now existing those very people to rise in arms among us and to purchase that liberty of which he has deprived them by murdering people on whom he also obtruded them, thus paying off former crimes committed against the liberties of one people with crimes which he urges them to commit against the lives of another. That's on italics too, so that's very interesting. It's like his original work. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injuries. A prince's character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be ruler of a free people who mean to be free. Future ages will scarcely believe that the hardness of one man adventured within the short compass of 12 years only to lay a foundation so broad and so undisguised for tyranny over a people fostered and fixed in principles of freedom. Nor we have been wanting in attention to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by the legislators to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over these our states, us, We have reminded them of the circumstances of the emigration and settlement here, no one of which could warrant so strange a pretension that these were effected at the expense of our own blood and treasure, unassisted by the wealth or the strength of Great Britain, that is constituting indeed on several forms of government. We adopted one common king, thereby laying a foundation of perpetual language and amity with them. But that submission to their parliament was no part of our constitution, nor ever an idea. If history may be credited, and we have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by as well to the ties of our common kindred, and disavow these usurpations, which would invariably interrupt our connection and correspondence. They have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity, and when occasions have been given them by the regular course of their laws of removing from their councils from the disturbers of our harmony, they have, by their free election, reestablished them in power. At the very time, too, they are omitting their chief magistrate to send over not only soldiers of our common blood, but Scotch and foreign mercenaries to invade and destroy us. These facts has given this last stab to agonizing affection, and mainly spirit bids us to renounce forever these unfeeling. Oh, sorry about that. Unfeeling. Wow, hold on here. Yeah, unfeeling brethren. Sorry about that. We must endeavor to forget our former love for them, and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace friends. We might have been a free and great people together, but a communication of grandeur of freedom, it seems, below their dignity. Be it so, since they will have it. The road to happiness and to glory is open to us too. We will tread it apart from them, and we must therefore accuse us in the necessity which denounces our eternal separation, and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace friends. We therefore, the representatives of the United States of America in General Congress assembled, appealing to the judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by authority of the good people of these states, colonies, reject and renounce all allegiance and subjections to the King of Great Britain and all others who may hereafter claim by, through, or under them. We utterly dissolve all political connection which may heretofore have subsisted between us and the people or Parliament of Great Britain. And finally, we do assert and declare these colonies to be free and independent states, solemnly publish and declare that these United Colonies are and of right and ought to be free and independent states, that they are dissolved from our allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that is, as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract allies, establish commerce, and do all other acts and things which independent states might right do. In support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protections of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. This is interesting stuff. There's a lot in here is italic, which was never been in the final draft. But one thing we know for sure, friends, when you study the history of these individuals, then you have to really see what they're really about. You're going to hear these half-hearted fools give you face value, but they don't want to tell you the fine print. And that's when, in a period of time, Jefferson ended slavery, like the Constitution ended slavery. Jefferson and the Congress did their part, and states jury nullifications. Plus, technology invented by Eli Whitney, the cotton gin, the slave trade has been dwindling. We didn't need a war. That's nothing more than a true farce to an extent on a political scale by the politicians. The soldiers, on the other hand, still got to give them homage, regardless. But it's still what they believed in. That part of ours, recommend folks check out the movies Guys and Generals and Gettysburg. They're long, but has some lot of historical merit. You look at all sides. That's what's essential. That's when we can interact. Instead of screaming and yelling at each other, calling each other racist, slave owners, and all that, is completely unacceptable. I don't need to be with these little sissy tirades out there. But I can say this: what Jefferson did, I give him homage. When I learn more about these individuals, I appreciate it. And this is why we have to renounce the United States of America as a federal corporation, an empire. Be members of the UN. Get out of the World Bank, the IMF. They're all part of the problem, my friends. The World Trade Organization, NAFTA, GATT, condemn them all. That's one of the areas you got to look at. Of course, it's our duty to resist all forms of tyranny, whether it's federal, state, or local. That's right. They don't want you to know that. Of course, you're going to have corruption and so forth, like in the big mega cities. You're going to have them wanting to be mafia bosses, and you have your boss hogs in the hick towns. But as each individual, we have natural-born rights, period. Don't listen to these mind-controlled cockroaches out there. They're pathetic. They don't even give a damn about any of us. You're gonna fall for their propaganda. He's gonna bite you in the rear end. You least suspect it, or step on your own bear trap. Prove me wrong that Thomas Jefferson was a racist, if you dare. But I'll tell you one thing, my friends. I did enough homework on this guy, and I admire him dearly. And I don't need a History Channel to tell me what's right or wrong. So that's why celebrate independence of excising your natural-born rights as long as you don't violate others. Love your neighbors as you love yourselves. Absolutely. Talk to people like individuals, regardless of where they're from. Trust me, you'll go a long ways. All right, we're going to do a couple more here. And this one is from Big League Politics. A good friend of mine actually sent this to me, which is in reference to my favorite Gino in Broward County, not my sheriff, Scott Israel. There's an exclusive by Laura Loomer. Says here, Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel to be removed next week. It came out yesterday, to be exact. High-level sources within Broward County Sheriff's Office exclusively revealed to Big League Politics that disgraced Broward County Sheriff Scott Israel is set to be removed from his position as sheriff next week. According to the source, sheriff is being removed from office for criminal issues, not malfeasance, following an investigation conducted by the Florida Governor Rick Scott. So it's a lot bigger than what happened in the horrific events of Parkland shootings. I'll continue on here. The source exclusively revealed the Big League Politics that Sheriff Israel is also allegedly being investigated by the IRS. Oh, I love it. I love when two enemies go at each other. The high-level police source within the sheriff's office disclosed that over the last several months, four candidates have been interviewed to refill the position of Broward County Sheriff. One of the candidates who were interviewed is Emery Gianni, a Republican law enforcement official who is closely associated with Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi. Just be careful about that, my friends, okay? During the IG's testimony last week, FBI Director Christopher Wray was asked about the Parkland school shooting. When asked, Wray declined to answer any questions about the shooting as Sheriff Israel. Citing that it was an active FBI investigation following the Parkland shooting, Governor Scott called for Director Wray to resign over the FBI's failure to properly investigate Nicholas Cruz, 19, the school shooter, who's planning to carry out school shooting, were reported to the FBI twice prior to the shooting on Valentine's Day. We constantly promote see something, say something, and courageous persons did that to the FBI, and the FBI failed to act. See something, say something is an incredibly important tool, and people must have confidence in the follow through from law enforcement. The FBI director needs to resign, Governor Scott said. According to the source in the Broward County Sheriff's Office, Scott Israel's removal revolves around a criminal matter that the FBI is aware of. Although his failure surrounding the Parkland shooting initially sparked the investigation, it isn't the sole reason why he's being removed. The high-level source who wished to remain anonymous told Big League Politics that Sheriff Israel is already aware of the fact that he's being removed from the office next week. Sheriff Israel has been under heavy criticism for his handling of the Parkland shooting, which left 17 people dead. Following the Valentine's Day school massacre at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, it was revealed that police officers under Sheriff Israel's order were called to the home of the Parkland shooter 45 times prior to the school shooting. It's unclear why law enforcement at the Broward County Sheriff's Office and the FBI failed to properly investigate crews, but their massive failure has been directly attributed to the loss of 17 lives in Parkland, Florida. Since the Parkland shooting, a lot of unflattering information has come out regarding Sheriff Israel, along with being a mouthpiece for Democratic politicians and gun control advocates like Hillary Clinton and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who have been photographed with Sheriff Israel, and his department have recently made headlines for more controversy. In May, it revealed that Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School and the Broward County Sheriff's Office were keeping quiet the fact that Sheriff Israel's son, Brett, had allegedly assaulted a 14-year-old student on campus and acted bullying. Yeah, I talked about that in my past archives, my past episodes, so check it out. Shortly after the school shooting, cell phone video film crews himself revealed that he felt bullied, which led him to carry out a massacre on February 14, 2018 in a targeted attack against his former classmates. Most recently, Sheriff Israel received a massive amount of backlash after Broward County Sheriff's Office tweeted a picture of a new custom-made Broward Sheriff's car that read, "Our new Dodge Charger. Do you like the paint job?" The tweet sparked outrage online from Republicans and Democrats alike, who quipped it that the Broward Sheriff's Office should use the funds to pay for better officer training, not new cars. Leaders on both sides of the aisle have called for Sheriff Israel to resign and be removed by the governor for his extreme dereliction of duty and failure to prevent one of the worst school shootings in U.S. history. During the Florida GOP primary debate in Florida last week, Federal Agriculture Commissioner Adam Putnam and Representative Ron DeSantis were asked about the Parkland school shooting. Both Putnam and DeSantis called for the removal of Scott Israel while asserting their support of the Second Amendment. But one thing you got to be careful of Representative Ron DeSantis, who ran for governor. He is pro-Big Brother, my friends. He does support the NSA, peeping Tom, spying on the American people. All you got to do is look it up. Do yourself a favor, look it up. I've done it. I would have removed that sheriff from Broward County. He failed his citizens and should have been removed, DeSantis said. Sheriff is under investigation and he needs to go, Putnam said. Governor Scott is expected to release a statement in the coming week when Sheriff Israel is removed from office. Scott is currently running for the U.S. Senate in Florida, and news of Sheriff Israel's removal is sure to boost his approval rating and what is gearing up to be one of the most important Senate races in the country. It's interesting because I'm not too surprised at this time to get himself those ratings. But one thing you got to look at too from Governor Rick Scott, he is a flip-flopper, and he did in that one bill, the Public Safety Act, School Safety Act, he signed. I think it's SB 7026, I believe that might be. I may be mistaken. 3-day waiting period purchasing a rifle is unconstitutional because it violates Article 1, Section 8 of the Florida Constitution. But he said, oh yeah, got to be a 3-day waiting period. You know what? On the state level, it's null and void. So technically he breached his oath again. I don't hear any more excuses by flip-flop Rick Scott. But if he does the right thing in good faith, I'm removing Scott Israel. I'm going to give him a thumbs up. I don't know about voting for him as a senator, U.S. Senator. That's my intake. In the days following the Parkland shooting, Sheriff Scott Israel was confronted and asked about his importance and of affiliation with the Democratic Party and why he chose to blame guns instead of holding his department and the FBI accountable. Unable to withstand tough questioning, Sheriff Israel became flustered and ended the interview after saying, "The only person accountable for the killing is the detestable, cowardly murderer. He is solely responsible for this horrific act." However, as the investigation into Parkland has shown, both Sheriff Israel and the FBI dropped the ball in order to blame for the failure to prevent the shooting despite receiving multiple warning signs. Well, my friends, that's what happens when you leave all your security eggs in the hands of the government. As I told people in the past, the police aren't obligated to protect you as an individual under Florida Statute 768.28, Sovereign Immunity and Tort Liability Act. And once again, I'll say it multiple times. I said this multiple times. I admit it. Wong versus City of Miami, 1970, Florida Supreme Court case. Well, see, when it comes to witch hunting, if you're gonna go witch hunting, which this sheriff did, so-called, not my sheriff. Okay, not my sheriff, Scott Israel. You became the enemy of the people. And in addition, he's a member of Homeland Security. Major conflict of interest. He should have tossed his ass out immediately. Because the fact is, when you're a member of Homeland Security, you made your allegiance to them, not to the people of your municipality, Broward County. He's just an example. So is Joe Blow Lombardo from Vegas, another member of Homeland Security. You look up federalized sheriffs, or just look up Joe Lombardo or Scott Israel, members of Homeland Security. You'd be surprised. The facts are right there. And it's not just from some conspiracy sites either. So that's one of the reasons why I'm real curious if this is going to go or not. But if it does, that's fine. If not, we should just recall his ass anyway. Don't be afraid of this guy. He's nothing. Maybe a nice person, but his ego is pathetic. But when you're a federalized sheriff, you are a conflict of interest. And I've been saying that to people since 2008 when he ran for sheriff the first time. Yep, $186,000 a year. What did he do? I'll have a witch hunting fetish. Well, if that's the case, toss him out. If there's a criminal investigation, if there's enough merit, indict him. And if he's convicted under judicial due process, so be it. All in the name of principle. No personal political gain. So, that's one thing I can deal with here. And I'll do one more from Freedom Outpost. It came from SHTF, if I'm correct. Yeah. .com. SHTF plan to be exact. It says here, James Comey interviewed more gun control for the peasants. It is by Max Salvo. Came out today. During a recent interview, filed an FBI Director James Comey called more gun control against peasants, but not for the ruling class he was part of for so long. Comey also said the NRA propagates lies in order to keep Americans armed against their rulers. Well, sorry, chump. Go read the Declaration of Independence once again. Surely there are things we could agree upon that relate to who's able to buy a weapon, what kind of weapon and what age, what are the capabilities of the weapon are, how many rounds does it hold, and things like that in no way threaten the rights under the U.S. Constitution of people to keep their bare arms. Comey said during an interview with the UK's iNews. Oh, big for nothing, a big bit of a tyrant. Yeah, exactly. James Comey. Yeah, called James Comey, right? Except, based on the very working of the Second Amendment, all guns are unconstitutional. Of course, the ruling class doesn't care what they do to those underneath them. iNews quoted Comey indicating he is not for and all about all-out ban on private gun ownership, but he does support making some rather strict changes to the current law, including the increase in the legal age for gun purchases. Feds know best, right? Give me a break. According to The Hill, Comey also harshly criticized the NRA as standing in the way of securing these controls, saying one of the worst things that goes on in the U.S. is the current voice of the National Rifle Association because it sells fear in the wake of any incident. He specifically mentioned the NRA's opposition to gun controls, which were pushed in the wake of the December 14, 2012 attack on Sandy Hook Elementary School. I'm going to stop there for a moment. Here's what's interesting about that. According to FBI.gov, which he was a director of, in the year 2012, under Uniform Crime Reporting, Tablet 8. Look under Connecticut and take a little stroll under Newtown. According to the site, there were 0 murders in that town. 0, nil, goose egg. In Newtown, Connecticut. Who was the director of the FBI at that time? You're the one and only James Comey. So the question is, Mr. Comey, can you explain that to me? That why on your own website, as director of the Federal Bureau of Investigations, that there were 0 murders reported in Newtown, Connecticut. Not a conspiracy theory from your own page. Honest face. Prima facie. And all you Comey defenders out there, explain that. I'll continue on. Sells fear, unlike the government, who literally sells fear of gun rights to the left and then demands Americans to simply disarm to be with the whims of those who claim to be right to rule over them. The irony of that call could cure the world of amnesia. While the visit to a local gun shop by an FBI counterterrorism agent is no surprise, it should serve as a stark reminder that the U.S. government is vastly concerned about well-armed populists. Gun rights have been gradually eroded in the United States for decades, just by the activist post. Comey added, I own guns, and yet I hope all thoughtful gun owners recognize that on one hand is the right to guarantee in the U.S. Constitution, but like all rights to the Constitution, it's appropriately subject to reasonable regulation and restriction. See, he's giving you a penile microphone rhetoric. He wants to put his big wad out and have you guys indulge on it. Okay, master, may have another. Please. That's what James Comey is. He's a terrible used car salesman. He couldn't even sell you a product at a used Walmart shop. Or he couldn't even sell you abandoned porta potty, okay? That's what James Comey's rhetoric's all about. Very unattractive. Comey, a government agent, owns guns. That's not a big surprise. But notice he didn't say he would be willing to give up any of his guns or restrict himself or the militarized police. Following the law is for those who are deemed less worthy of self-defense, especially against the government, which is seeking to expand their power over everyone else. What the government, James Comey included, hope people never figured out is that everyone has a natural or God-given right to defend themselves against aggression. The Constitution doesn't grant anyone's rights. It is merely lists of them as a way to keep the government from abusing those people who claim they claim the right rule over. And Mr. Salvo is correct. So right there, how come I don't see all those people out there going after James Comey, call him a dictator, a Nazi? No Comey, no KKK, no Fascist USA. Oh yeah, because he can't stand Donald Trump. See, he has a kid with Trumpsity. And like I said before, I'm not a Trump worshiper, but all these people manifest over Comey. So fascinated about it, this big for nothing big bird who makes Benedict Arnold a profound patriot. That's right. He's a terrible con man. The reason why he got fired because he's so damn corrupt. He can't even do proper records keeping. Newtown, Connecticut, 2012, 0 murders. Don't defend him by saying it's a clerical error, my friends. All right? I don't want to hear your defense mechanized rhetoric. Okay? What is the FBI's excuse under his watch? He is a peasant master. I bet don't be surprised if he has an Adolf Hitler or Mao Tse-tung sex bot in his closet, symbolically speaking. This is why you never trust the government, period. And the Declaration of Independence is the same thing. You don't trust them. Never, ever do it. That's why we have the Bill of Rights culture, and it stands for government keep out, not compromise, like that Palmolive big for nothing twit has to say. That's right. I don't like tyrannical tyrants or their sympathizers. To me, they're attributes of garbage. Gator feces is more valuable than their attributes. And that is it. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share this throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you sent something that's interesting and may want to check out, whatever you do, please address your correspondence with Decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, Minds.com, FutureNet.club, Patreon.com/Look3 at 3 eyes. If you're going to be a donor, that'd be awesome. Hit me at Gab, Yours.org, OneWay.org, Playlist.co, just in case, Gab, GAB.ai. In addition, you can email me at LokiLuck3@gmail.com or to your encrypted one, especially with the Proton Mail account, LokiLuck03@ProtonMail.com. All right, my friends. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that the demoniac resistance is something for soul can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.